Thank you, Dr. Sinclair, and thank you, Shantanu and others, the organizers, for inviting me to give this talk. As Dr. Sinclair said, let me just introduce our lab and what we do a little bit before going on to my talk itself. Microsoft Research Worldwide is the research arm of Microsoft, the company that you all know about, and as such it works on basic research. It does basic research advancing the state of the art of computer science and related areas. On whatever area that people work on. Worldwide, we have about 700 plus PhD level researchers, generally considered among the top people in their respective areas. In India, we have about 56 people, 40 of us are researcher, and then there is a small engineering team as well. We are not a development center in the sense that we don't do any product development. We are a basic research lab. However, obviously, we naturally work with the Microsoft product divisions worldwide, including the one in Hyderabad, India, which, for example, has over 1,500 people to transfer our ideas into Microsoft products as a part of our technology transfer activity. We work in different areas of computer science. Best is to look at our website, research.microsoft.com/India, to find out more about what we do. And we work in areas ranging from mobile systems, networking, software engineering, multiple language computing, and things of that sort. The lab is 5 years old. We just celebrated our 5th anniversary in January. And it's also sort of a pleasure and an honor for us that the lab was inaugurated in 2005 by none other than Mr. Kapil Sibal, who was, of course, the chief guest yesterday here. And he and the Government of India and the Department of Science and Technology have been staunch allies and friends of the lab. And we partner with them as well as with the Indian academia, apart from our research, with the aim of advancing the state of research and enhancing the state of research in computer science especially, but other areas as well in India. We have a significant activity in terms of doing that. In fact, my colleague, Ms. Vidya Nadampalli, is here, and she's giving a talk in the next session, and she is responsible for all our external interactions, and I'd certainly welcome you to talk to her. With that, let me move on to the topic of my talk. I should first admit that I'm not really a person working in digital libraries, but I work in probably the best area related to media and information because it has the most eye candy and fun stuff. So my research area has always been in computer vision, and particular video analysis and video processing, and I've been doing this for about 30 years now, since the time I joined my PhD and so on. And worked on very many problems, including something called optical flow, tracking points in the imagery, analysis of movement in the context of 3D and things like that. So as such, although I'm not working in digital libraries mainstream, the kind of work that myself and other researchers in the field of computer vision and video analysis do are hopefully significant, because one of the most important sources of information these days, and I think increasingly so, is actually imagery, and more importantly video, because video captures action and things that are happening in the world. Now, however, when we think of video, what do we think about video? What is it good for? We think about it as entertainment. I mean, most of our interaction with video as people is really about watching movies, television shows, cricket games, things like that. So all of this is some form of entertainment or the other, and we are always thinking of video as a source of entertainment. So what do? We just sort of, either watch it on TV or stream it or download it and watch it. So it's all about watching, not so much about producing and sharing. But however, it goes beyond that. For example, a lot of training and education, I'm not talking about distance learning alone, but even like training on how to perform a task in many engineering firms and so on, or medical firms, is really done best through video, where you illustrate to people how to do something. So video is a very important source of showing how things are done or how things work or how to do things. And that's a very common and very typical usage of video. Of course, medical imaging, what's happening inside your body, into a system, the best source of information is video. Now, this is not typically regular video in the sense of it's not regular wavelength of light, but it may be ultrasound or CT or MR, but all the time we are looking at actually movement of things and activity in order to detect what may be going right or wrong with the system. Of course, scientific observation, many experiments in not only in physics and engineering, but also in biology and so on, is very much based on capturing video and seeing how things evolve or change or behave over time. Pretty much anything from a chemistry experiment to astronomy to engineering, you rely on video to observe the activity of things. And of course, if you take time-lapse video over a long period of time, even things like energy and environment and other properties of Earth, we actually visualize the changes over time in the form of video. And it's much more vivid to see that than to simply see a graph or simply to see a still image or a collection of still images. So the fundamental thing that video gives you is this vivid sense of things happening over time. And as such, it's probably the only real source of information like that. And today, of course, increasingly video is used for social communication. I think, with the advent of webcam and, chat over internet, video chat, this is something that everybody does. In fact, if I go to my children, who are teenagers, they probably use the computer more for this than for any other single purposes. Of course, my son plays games a lot, but social sort of interaction through video communication is probably one of the predominant uses. And we live in the age of sharing our personal experiences through YouTube and other means. So it's really everybody is an author, everybody is a broadcaster, everybody wants to share what they do. And another very, very important usage of video is what we call evidential or observational. Most important of this is surveillance. I mean, security and surveillance nowadays critically depends on watching what's happening through video around your plant or a building or an airport or any facility. And we all know how much it's important to be able to do this and catch things that are likely to go wrong, but also how much we use it later to go back and watch what's happened somewhere and as a way of evidence gathering. So this is significantly critical societal use of video. So I think the summary point is that I think video is everywhere. It's not simply about watching movies and entertainment. It's really actually a source of information and communication of everything that is happening around us. And remarkably, when I go to look at digital library conferences like this, the role and the usage of video in the context of digital libraries is something that has not really been addressed significantly. Now, however, it's not unlike books where we have a traditional thing of library with organization, indexing and things like that. Video is much more ad hoc. It's produced in all kinds of places, so it's not really a collection of video that you want to store in a library. Maybe movies and other authored shows you might do that, but a lot of the useful video is not even indexed, cataloged, and authored. And this is very important issue from the point of view of using and leveraging this vast source of information. So the rest of my talk is really going to be to understand how to think about video as an information source, and what are some of the important user needs, perhaps, and challenges technology-wise that face, and a little bit of a glimpse into the type of technology research that's going on worldwide in the context of video research. And I'll say a little bit, a very, very small glimpse, because there's a vast amount of stuff that I will definitely not be able to cover. And I'll leave you thinking a little bit, hopefully, about how we may look at video as a first-class citizen or a first-class information source in the context of the knowledge world and digital libraries, taken in a broad sense of the word at least. So what are the different types of video? For my own purpose, I'd like to break down video into three broad categories. One is storytelling, and I was going to show a movie clip from your favorite movie, whatever it is, but you know how with all the copyright issues and so on, I didn't want to get myself into trouble. But you just have to go to any website. I could have shown you My Name is Khan or Avatar or something, but imagine that while I'm talking. Probably better than hearing my voice than to actually imagine it. Or your favorite Bollywood dance number. So it's movies, documentaries, television. These are all storytelling using video, right? And one of the critical sort of key aspects of it is they always have a strong narrative structure. I mean, a storytelling video is only interesting if the narrative is interesting. Ultimately, it's about the story, not about the video itself. And it's usually fully authored. I mean, as you all know, a movie consists of a series of clips, usually none of which is more than a minute or 2 minutes long. And that means somebody has gone around taking these long clips, cut them down to 1 or 2 minute sizes and stitch them together, many of them in the context of, say, an Indian movie which may be 2.5 hours long, that's about 150 minutes. You're talking about, sometimes close to 100 clips or more that someone has painstakingly authored together. And what you see at the end is not a continuous action that's going on in the video. It's what the authors chose for you to see, but it gives you some sense of narrative continuity, and that's actually the great, creative aspect of this whole business, if you will. Quality is high. I mean, you're not going to go watch a movie if the quality is not good. And I think one sort of a side note here, which is, I think, to me very inspiring, is that in movies, I've always continuously tried to increase the visual vividness quality of that experience. And I think I read somewhere recently there are basically 3 big revolutions in the movies. The first one was when it introduced sound. That was about 70 years ago or more. The second one was color was introduced. That was about 50 years or so or more. And the most recent one is actually 3D movie experience, which I think you can be sure in about 5 to 10 years is probably every movie that you'll watch will have a significant component, because the way in which you are able to experience the visual world through these different uses of your sensory channels is actually incredibly increasing and exciting. But ultimately, this video is designed to keep the viewer attention, to make it exciting, to tell a story, and it is also a video which has a lot of resources. I'll get to that in a second. The second one is what I call personal video. I have a little cute video from one of my colleagues. This is actually my PhD student. Maybe I should turn the sound off. Otherwise, I can't talk. But I'll let you watch. It's kind of funny, actually. So this is called the broom trick, which is you have to bring the broom to the front of your body in some very complicated way. Usually our experience is that most Indian friends have no difficulty doing it, but non-Indian friends usually stumble a few times and things like this. Michael is particularly flexible, and so he's taken time to demonstrate to the rest of the world how to do the broom trick. Okay, if you want to do the broom trick, learn the broom trick, you'll have to do that later. So let me go back and get to my talk. Now, personal video is a very, very important source of video content these days. I mean, given that we have video cameras that are so cheap and every small pocket camera can capture video of 1 or 2 minutes or 5 minutes long, and that's really all that people want to do, because anything more than that is actually tremendously boring. And so you find it everywhere. Everybody is uploading their videos. We've all, we've all discovered the exhibitionist in us, I guess. The content is spontaneous and the authoring is minimal, meaning, you don't actually try to cut and paste it to make it look interesting. You just capture what you can. It's mostly made by amateurs. And the quality is extremely varying. For most part, what you see on the web, the quality is not very good. And that's because the bandwidths, and the compression techniques that exist today really do not support very high quality video. I mean, you can go to the HD mode of these various video sharing sites and get higher quality, but very few people actually take their video in HD, personal videos in HD anyway. And the only reason you'll use the HD mode is to get the authored content, like movies or something, to watch it, in high quality. Quality is varying. It's not always interesting. I mean, the authors often think it's interesting, and this is like, your old story of bringing a bunch of relatives and friends home for dinner and then, bothering them with your family photographs. Or in olden days, it used to be slideshow of your vacation, and nobody was interested except you, but you thought they were all interested. But, we oblige each other by watching it, but it's at least your friends would be interested. And it's a lot of it is captured and very little of it is watched, because, I'm sure many of you have taken videos of some wedding or a birthday party or this or that, and probably you never even watched it more than once after that, on occasion when grandmother comes or something, and that's it. So this is an example, and the reason we don't watch it is primarily because it's hard to find what we need out of our own collections, leave alone, public collections. The third video I was going to talk about, mention, is the observational video. This is a simple example of some experiments we were doing in video surveillance, where we set up a camera on top of somebody's house in a suburban area. And you might think that this is a still image, but the truth is, in fact, it is a video. And this is a classic, example of the kind of stuff that happens in security and surveillance video. Nothing really happens most of the time. In fact, we want it to be that way. If something happens, that's probably not a good news. And if something happens routinely, like, cars are coming into a parking lot and going out, you're fine, right? It's when that one weird car does something strange, and that's when you want to be alert. So the interesting information is buried inside a lot of boring content. And you really cannot assume that, someone can sit and watch it endlessly and actually find it. Of course, real-time catching of this is extremely important. But that's not easy, and this is one place where technology can be of tremendous help for alerting, the people who are observing the people who are security guards and so on. And you all know the scenario that you go to some airport or some company, there is usually some kind of a hidden basement room which is quite dingy and without much air, and you will have 7 or 8 monitors, each of which would have 4 quadrants where there are videos shown from about 20 cameras. And there will be 3 people at most who will be sitting and watching it. I've seen this in some of the biggest airports in the world, and it's kind of scary to see that all our security depends on these 3 people, spending tremendous amount of their attention on watching those videos. And they've, change channels because you don't have enough, monitors that people can pay attention to. A lot of times the video is saved and burned on a tape or a DVD these days and put in a disk. Usually the date and time is written, and that's all you get. And when you want to actually find what happened, it's a tremendous task to go and look for what you want. And usually they have time code and things like that, so that's useful. The real-time aspect of it is extremely important. However, in the context of this scenario, I'm going to focus a little bit on the more library or the summarization aspects of it. So that's broadly what, how I like to divide video into these 3 categories: these authored, produced, creative content for telling stories, the personal video, which can be about anything, and what I call broadly observational video. And in this, I'd like to include things like the scientific, experiments and things like that, because they are also for the purposes of some sort of evidence gathering of some phenomenon that is happening outside in the real world. So I think you can sort of think of video in the broad 3 categories, particularly because the user needs and sort of the metadata type of requirements as well as availability does vary across these 3 types of content. So let's look at video stories, for example, right? People would want to watch everything or selected portions, chapters and DVDs. Of course, you fast forward to that particular scene that you wanted to watch. Chapter decomposition is usually there, and it's very, even sub, chapters and things like that. What do you want to do? You often want to find a particular actor or a scene where something happened. Oh, sorry, in terms of the video itself, let me go back to one level up. You are looking for a video, with an actor that you like, or a director that directed a show, or a year of production, or a particular title, or a particular cricket game that happened on a particular year that's of interest to you. So it's all based on extra content. In other words, it's based on the metadata that is usually very well available, and there's no problem. In fact, you can search for these videos on those basis, and you can usually find them. So this is very richly supported by external or extra metadata outside of the content itself. When we watch the video, we want to be able to navigate to specific scenes. I think one of the great sort of benefits of going from video VHS or video tapes to DVD is that we don't have to hold that fast forward button and keep on waiting for things to change. So you can actually skip to the place that you want, and there is usually certain amount of indexing and chapter organization. However, if you want to find a specific scene with a specific actor or something that you saw on that video, it's not always indexed exactly for that for you. So it is indexed and chapterized for a certain purpose, but you may want to do something different. You may want to see all the scenes in which your favorite actor or actress appeared in that movie, and you actually can't do that using the kind of metadata that is available and the organization that is available in the video. So content level metadata creation, content level search is actually a very useful thing in the context of even authored videos, and this is not quite possible, although I'll show a little bit of work on that. And of course, ultimately, payment model is very important, and there's all kinds of solutions to that. Script and subtitling is available, and that's actually very important because a lot of times in movies you can actually get to where you want based on the dialogue or something like that happened, and that's available in the subtitle, and you can actually search for it without having to actually search the video content itself. And as I said, chapter decomposition and other types of metadata is available, and extra content, extra metadata is richly available. And I think this is broadly true for most authored video. After all, in the process of authoring, you can create that metadata, and you're putting in a lot of effort anyway, and people who want this video to be used, usually for commercial purposes, have the vested interest in order to produce and provide these kind of metadata. So that's done. Personal video, of course, one of the things we want to do is to share it with our friends and other people in the internet who seem to want to watch everybody's video. I don't know why. And you want to be able to find clips based on people or events, and these are, again, could be a personal, requirement. And, you want to be able to, but the one thing that we would like to do is to categorize and catalog this video into different types of content. Could be birthday parties or something like that. Or it could be a particular birthday party. Could be about children, or could be dance videos, or could be funny videos. I mean, the kind of tags that you would see for personal video is very rich and varied and very, very unexpected. You cannot predict it, what it will be in the first place, and it's an evolving thing. And the same video would be tagged in 6 different ways. It can be about and tagged according to the event where it was such and such festival or such and such place, or it could be funny video, it could be a music video. They all could be about the same video. So multiple tags are extremely important in being able to get to that. And many times you want to be able to compose and composite using multiple videos and others, sort of special effects maybe that you want to create. So even though you are an amateur, you want to produce a content for some event, you want to be able to do a little bit of authoring with these personal content, extremely difficult. Very little metadata, except the capture time, is usually there, and the camera information. There's no pre-categorization into topics or actors. And tagging is very common, but it's very, very limited. I mean, people don't have the time to go around tagging it in every possible way that you need it to be tagged. And in fact, the best source of tagging is probably when people use that video and they say, hey, I think this is a funny video, and add that tag. And being able to propagate tags and, to be able to maintain tags that people have created is an extremely important thing. But even organization of tags into categories is not really done today. So here's one where there is tremendous amount of need for interesting tools and handlers to access the video, but simply does not exist at this point, in time. And there's no script or time-based timeline decomposition into chapters or anything like that. There is timeline which you can index to, but you don't remember what particular point in time when that funny move happened in that dance video. So you really don't know that unless someone tags it. And you can actually see this in YouTube. Oh, go look at 13.4 minutes to 13.6 or something like that. And because various people have said that's the portion that you really want to look at. And as my favorite example is when the run out happened in the cricket match about 2 days ago. There was such an important event. Probably that video will go on YouTube sooner or later, and various people will say, here, look at 3 minutes and 4 seconds to 3 minutes and 17 seconds when actually that run out happened, and everybody will be watching that. I mean, this kind of things that are important, interesting events are really generated by the users of the video, because they're the ones who know what is interesting ultimately, but have to be communicated in some way, and we don't have very systematic ways of doing that as well. The observational video is yet another story, right? You can usually find clips based on place, date, and that kind of metadata exists, and that's something you want to do. You want to be able to know what's from this particular airport or that parking lot if you're a person who's looking at what happened in terms of diagnostics, or that particular science experiment on that day. You want to be able to find interesting and critical events within the clips, and this is extremely important. Otherwise, the video is useless. In fact, the only reason to have this evidential video is to find the thing that happened that you want to be able to notice. And uses are, of course, broadly analytic. You want to analyze, maybe somebody is behaving funny in a parking lot or, in an airport corridor. You want to be able to analyze that and say, this is a strange behavior. Maybe a bunch of people crowding together, exchanging suitcases. Then you think something weird may be going on. But that's what you want to catch, and it's not easy to do. And of course, you want to be able to combine information from other sensors, extremely critical. For example, most corporations, public places like this, as well as, businesses, tend to have access control of their entryways. And when you enter, something triggers and it notices that so-and-so is entered and actually captures a picture very often. And there's video that it captures many times. Correlating this video with the other sensors, who's in there, it's actually important because you want to be able to narrow down what happened based on these other sensors as well. These are things that you would like to do, and in many cases you can't do. What's available is very limited metadata, like I said. And there is a certain amount of manual organization that takes place because there is a certain amount of need for doing that. But it's not very deep. So it is possible that people would identify, these are the segments where interesting things are happening. Contextual information around the scene and so on is available. That's not, like I said, about door entry and so on, but not correlated. Now, I do want to make one point disclaimer here, which is a lot of this video, actually the real-time usage is important. Again, in the context of digital libraries, that's probably not the thing that you're thinking about. But many times post-event analysis of what happened for the purpose of evidential gathering is equally important, and that's where it's relevant from a digital library perspective. So, one thing I wanted to point out is that, my take on digital library here is broad. It's not about an organized library have collected where somebody is systematically. It's really the world is your library, and you want to be able to access information. Now, in my opinion, there are 4 sort of functions that you need, and this is probably true for all media, but I've usually thought about it in the context of video. And one, of course, is access. You want to be able to get to the content that is interesting to you at the right time, right place, when you want it. Analysis, meaning able to analyze the video and being able to highlight interesting things that have happened, or being able to make comments about this. And this is a very rich area, but not really a lot of progress. Interaction. Ultimately, in a lot of these videos, you may actually want to be able to be able to click on something and go into that room, as opposed to follow what the video did. Be able to follow not the video according to the linear path of the video, but rather a non-linear path where you are interested in seeing what happened. Something that can be done, but it's not done today. Lastly, visualization, meaning, of course, viewing the video. Of course, you might say, what is there to view the video except to see it itself? But in fact, a lot of times, video is such a small window. It's like watching the world through soda straw. And you see a little bit of, you want to be able to visualize it in context of the broader scene. Even though the video itself may be about a small portion, you'd like to see the surrounding areas, even if it's not video, so that you know what. So there are ways of visualizing the video, and there are a lot of 3D sort of aspects of video visualization that's interesting research areas. So visualization of video is in itself an interesting component. Now, I'm just going to quickly go over a little bit of the state of technology and research as I know it. And a lot of disclaimers here, and even though I've been working in this area for the last half a dozen years, I've been too busy running this research lab, so I've probably not been as up on things, although I try to gather as much as I can. So if some of you know more than I do, I beg your forgiveness, and feel free to share it also. There's active research, but there is no systematic effort to create a set of tools for video analysis or video, in the context of an information source. It's very much at a boiling research stage. There are no commonly agreed set of requirements for the video processing or video analysis or video indexing. MPEG 7 and those kind of standards are given a lot of structure for video in terms of metadata and other types of organization. A lot of it is too universal, if you will. It's very important, but it's too universal for the specific things that you want, often that you discover post observing the video. There's no easy way to develop that type of requirement or a standardization of that process. And most of the problems in terms of video analysis and search are actually still quite hard as research problems. If it weren't hard, people like me wouldn't be working on it. So the fact that it's hard is not a source of concern. It's really the source of opportunity. But to be honest, I don't want to give you the impression that it's done. Compared to, say, for example, textual libraries, we are quite far from being able to do certain things. There are a number of activities, significant activities. There is this ACM Multimedia or IEEE Multimedia community, which meet regularly, and there are specialized workshops on video indexing and processing that happen. Major computer vision and image processing conferences usually have topics on this. So there is a community quite active. In fact, I'll explain a little bit about how active it is, and you'll be quite impressed. One of the key efforts is something called TRECVID, which is run by the National Institute of Standards in the US. And the next set of slides I borrowed from a colleague who's one of the organizers of TRECVID. So credit to him, Professor Alan Smeaton, who is in Dublin. And so let me say a little bit about the things I learned from him, actually from a talk that he gave at a video workshop I organized last summer. TRECVID's goal is basically to promote the progress in content-based video analysis, detection, retrieval in large amount of digital video. Most important thing is that they want to be able to actually evaluate the performance of algorithms and systems that are being developed against what people want to do and people are capable of doing, right? And they're not looking at very minute functionality as a feature detector or something like that in the video, but rather looking at a high-level, user-level problem, what the user would want, end user would want, and what kind of things they want to do. And it's, one of the components of that effort is to really support and, promote the research in the content analysis, such as search or feature detection or, when video has been duplicated, those kind of detections and so on, or any interesting event, dynamic event in activity that may be happening in with it. And they started in 2003, and they had set up themselves a 9-year time horizon to try to do something. I think my guess is, they'll find they'll have to continue longer than that. They create a set of tasks, and it's like a little bit of a competition. They make a big database of video available for the people who participate in this effort. Last year, there were more than 100 participants from around the world, from academia, industry, research labs, trying their algorithms in these tasks. Task should be something simple like short boundary detection, and I assume we know what that is. Most of the time, in long videos, you have a short change, a scene change. You might come to a clip and then add another clip. Can we detect that? I mean, truthfully, that's an extremely easy problem. There are probably more algorithms for short boundary detection than anything else now, and it's basically a solved problem. Sometimes, occasionally, there's still problems, but mostly it's done. Detection of interesting visual features, objects, things in the scene could be based on the color or texture of objects in the scene, or could be based on, even a characteristic such as having broadly textured things as outdoor scenes and, linear structures, which are typically, prevalent in indoor scenes and things of that sort. Being able to search but do interactively with a certain amount of user assistance and user querying and feedback, and then refining your queries and those kind of things. Summarization of video, long videos into what happened quickly. Can you see what happened in like a day in a minute type of thing? That's a very important aspect of this research. So these are just tasks that they do one year, but another year maybe different tasks. They supply this video, then people go away and work on them, and then they submit the results and it's evaluated. There is certain events that usually take place in one of the major multimedia conferences called Video Olympics, where they share their results and things like that. For example, in last year, they had 200 hours of video from Netherlands Institute of Sound and Vision, from BBC. So these are videos organizations are willing to provide them as data sets, copyright free and things like that for the purpose of this research type of usage. You can ask, you can submit a request to the TRECVID, source, and they will send you the video that you want. There are 5 tasks they evaluated. I'm not going to go into that specifically because I really am not going to talk so much about TRECVID, but just to give you the flavor of the type of community activity that is taking place in this space to promote the usage of video and building better technologies and tools for the purpose of analyzing and sharing video. Okay. So some of the results are kind of slightly depressing. In small closed libraries, meaning probably within a video clip actually, content-based video search works well, but with metadata it would be better. I still think that's actually an optimistic view. And a lot of the search is based on image and keyframe, not on the video. And this is actually very ironic in the sense that the primary purpose of video as opposed to a still image is to see action and change over time. But we actually don't know how to search for action and change. We search for things in the video, appearance. So we search for frames actually. And we don't do a lot of doing scene or clip level, but at a shot level. And results of the feature detection and other algorithms are still, is okay, but they are far from being acceptable, quite frankly, right? And doing something together on a system level, it's quite far from reality. There needs to be a lot of work in this space. Now, that's sort of where the community is, and as I said, it's been around for a long time. It's very active, a lot of participants, a wide range of, areas, and I think one has to appreciate the patience and the willingness of a lot of these organizations and actually individuals who spend a lot of their years to work in this area and support it. I've been working in that area except for the times when I've been in management, and it's actually quite a challenging, although exciting research area, and you have to go for the long haul really. We're talking work that's been done for 20 years with progress that's probably not as compelling as some of us would like to be. Right? So, but it's still, there's no way to do it other than to continue to do it. So let me give you a couple of examples of interesting research, mostly as a way of saying the kind of problems that people are working on. As I said, there's plenty of stuff that's going on here. There's no way I can represent it. These are just 3 examples from friends. So these are people who I know who have been working in this area. So they're willing to share their results with me. So I'm using that for that reason. Not to say that they are best or anything like that. They are among the best researchers. But, there's a lot of other stuff going on. So disclaimers aside, Professor Andrew Zisserman and his colleagues in Oxford University have been looking at searching within a video. Can we actually query for interesting objects in a video and find all the scenes where that may be available? Now, this is something that the metadata available cannot do. So, for example, here's an example of a scene from the movie. How many of you recognize the movie? Any of you? Okay, it's Groundhog Day. You probably would know it. And I don't know why, because that's one of Andrew's favorite movies, I think. So he uses that clip. Maybe he has permission to use it or something. And he sort of marked that little sort of a plate on the wall as, is it a clock maybe? Yeah, as the thing that you want to look at. And he wants to find all the scenes in which that would appear. And, the trick is that they may appear in different angles and poses. They may be partially visible. There will be different lighting conditions. So it's not going to look the same. So to be able to robustly find that same object, for us it's easy, right? But for a computer to find that same object under all these changing conditions is actually the real research challenge. And he's done some very good work. And these are some results of doing that. I don't know how well you can see because of the distance, but quite frankly, in every one of them there is a rectangle that marks where that where that box is. So this approach works quite well, and it brings probably the best methods that exist in the computer vision and video research field to address this one very simple, seemingly simple problem, and be able to make the progress. So that's a very interesting thing. But you can't do this across many videos. I mean, I can't find this kind of stuff from all the videos that are out there because the variation is way too much, right? So within a limited sort of what do you call, bounded sort of domain or content, circumscribed well, we can actually try to do this. Another example, which is probably more interesting, is actually finding someone interesting like Julia Roberts, and this is from the movie Pretty Woman, and he shows a number of clips in which, and again, notice that her hair is quite different from, the original example. So being able to deal with this variation, and, it's not our fault she keeps on changing her wigs or something in that movie, but we still have to deal with it. I mean, so, as a human being, you'll find it. I mean, you look at that video and you will know where Julia Roberts is. Well, depending on how old you are, maybe the younger. Most of us here look like Julia Roberts' generation. So Julia Roberts for sure you'll find. And, that's someone you want to find. And get the computer to do it. It's quite far away. I would say this is one of the best, research that's working on that topic and is reasonably good. Once again, within a single video. You take Julia Roberts dressed like a, medieval person or something like that, you won't be able to find it so easily. Another example, right? We talk about finding video on the basis of people. Equally interesting, but actually more challenging, would be to find similar activities or action. I mean, we tend to think simple things like maybe walking, running, jumping, but okay, those are not that difficult, but they're not as interesting because they happen way too much. So here's an example of some work done by one of my friends and colleagues in Weizmann Institute in Israel, Professor Michal Irani, and here she's looking at this as the example. So it's a particular ballet movement, and she wants to find it in other ballet videos. And notice that it doesn't have to be the same person. In fact, it won't be the same person. All we are interested in the movement itself. So let's see how they do. And so wherever it lights up, you see that. Since I don't know much about ballet, I don't know how to name that movement. Some of you may know. And there's actually a couple of places it misses it, but by and large, it does a pretty good job of finding that type of movement. Now, I'm not going to tell you how this is done. It's really exciting because as a person working in the area of motion analysis and action, to me, the people don't matter. It's what they do that matters. So to be able to actually capture the essence of the action in the video and find it. This is something we know how to do as people. It's not that trivial getting the computer to do it. And it's also an interesting example because it's one that you cannot really do by finding a single keyframe or an image. You have to find the sequence with the action, right, inherently. So there's some progress in it, but I wouldn't, want to oversell it. If you want to try a complex activity like a few people exchanging suitcases in an airport, even with example, trust me, it's going to be very hard. And the reason it's going to be very hard is because the amount of clutter in those videos. I mean, this was easy because you're on a stage, you're doing dance. Amount of clutter that exists in those kind of videos are so much that, narrowing down to the one that work is really hard. Having said that, it's something we need to do. I mean, as people, we can do it. As computers, we are not yet be able to do it. So it's not something we can walk away from saying, it's a very hard problem, I don't want to do it. So there are ideas and research work going on, and I hope eventually they'll get them. The last example I want to show was done in my own lab by my colleague, Dr. Nebosha Jojic, back when I was in the US, actually. And this is a summarization of home surveillance video. So I'll just play it. I think that has some sound.
For you, video vectorizing application, and some ideas that we have been exploring. We have here a security video, which as you can see at the beginning is a little bit exciting because Nebosha is walking around on his roof, but throughout the rest of the video, not very much happens. Occasionally something else will happen, but events are few and far between. However, we might be interested in viewing this video to see if something of interest or of particular interest has occurred. Now, one thing that we can do to summarize what's occurred is we can have icons that represent the discrete events that occurred. throughout the day. So if we click on this icon here, we can see it jumps to the portion in the video where either the car went by, or the cyclist went by, or the boy came down from the roof and started walking on the ground. And this is one way that we could summarize potentially 30 minutes of the video, which might take an hour. So you can see if we ran out of room, real estate on the page, we could have another screen, another panel, where we do the same sort of thing. Except even then, up in the upper corner here, where a lot of things occurred, we may have to resort to using more real estate. And what we've come up with here is the idea of having icons, where you click on these icons, and you can have a whole panel of them that scroll across, and that jumps into the sequence of the video. You can see up here, there's a lot more action up here. It makes it much easier to summarize. We also might be...
So I'm gonna not play it on. It goes for a while. But the point I wanted to make is that there are two sort of things that are happening there. One is taking this long video. We call it a day in a minute, really, and literally it can be a day-long video, and summarizing it into 1 or 2 or 3 still frames, really. And what we have done in this case is simply to take all the unique actions, like unique things that are going through, like cars, which I've done across the day, and put them all together in one frame so that you can see all the cars that went together. In fact, what he says is sometimes there may not be enough real estate on one image, so you can divide it into multiple images or break it according to time. And those are just minor visualization changes. And the second aspect of that is the summarization, the visualization itself, which is that once you see that and you see something interesting, I said there's a motorcycle here, I want to know who that was and when they went, you can now index into the video and play that particular segment where that activity took place. And this is a very simple but common idea of summarizing activity video. Works in these kind of situations, works in airport parking lots and things like that. But it cannot work, for example, in the airport itself where a lot of people are walking. But there's just way too much activity. How do you summarize something like that? So it's we talk about summarization in text, right? Summarization in video is an equally, if not more challenging problem. And it's partly challenging because we don't even know what summarization means. We haven't quite defined what are the kinds of summarizations that we need to do. And give you an abstract of a video based on the content, I don't think we can do that today. And it's a very interesting research problem, one that again needs to be addressed. So in summary, what I wanted to leave with you is that video data is ubiquitous. I mean, everybody has camera, everybody has video. And there is all kinds of video, the 3 broad categories that I talked about. And we want to share them, we want to view them, we want to analyze for what all these are quite important and urgent for many applications. And as much as we come from the reading generation that are used to reading books, trust me, our children and grandchildren will be coming from the watching generation, and they'll want to do the same things we did in the libraries, but with videos. And whether we like it or not, because we all bemoan the fact that people stop reading or something like that, like Mr. Kapil Sibal said about having the physical book in his hand, we don't even have to worry about books because in the next generation people aren't even reading anyway. However, they are watching, and some of the challenges still exist. Technology is very much in the early stages, very active research area, so there's some hope. So that's really all I have to say about video, but I figured in this community, wanted to sort of appeal to you and remind you that digital libraries should include and should be looking at what we can do with this very important source of information, probably the richest source of information about the world. And in one way, it's fundamentally different from the others is in that sense that, when you write books, the content is created by you. You capture video, the content is out there that you can't control. As such, it provides a great degree of richness and openness. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anandan. If there are any questions, we have 11 minutes more of time. So if there are any questions or comments, Anandan, would you like to come here or you want to stay there?
Probably here.
Whatever. Okay. Any comments, questions?
I have one.
Yeah, please.
Is that video searchable through the keywords assigned in indexing or tagging, or there is other way around?
Video searchable.
Well, searching is no, we can search within the video. using the assigned index or within, using that tagging keyword? What is the way, or
How
there
do you
is other way
search?
around?
I mean, I think, naturally we want to search, most of the time as people, we want to search on the basis of textual queries, right? Searching by querying in the video itself is a slightly oddball thing to do. People don't often do it. They want to actually say, find me the clock, or find me Julia Roberts, and they don't want to say, find me someone who looks like this, quite frankly, right? However, in terms of processing it, it is possible for us to translate that query into a visual query. A query saying, okay, when you say clock, clocks look like this, so my algorithm or technique can go and search on the basis of visual appearance, but the user interface, I think, is more likely to be on the basis of textual or speech query, because that's what we are comfortable at doing. That translation also isn't quite there yet, to be honest, okay? And tagging is extremely important, because one of the natural things is that if you once find something on the basis of some query, or if you just once, forever, I mean, if you want to say something is like a clock or a funny video, you create the tag. After that, you don't have to go look at the content over and over again. So creation of tags and using tags is extremely important. But in fact, one of the nice things would be to take tags on some videos. Let's say you have comedy videos, and then you have new videos that are not tagged. Can you actually import or copy tags by analyzing the content and matching the content? That's a very interesting research topic as well. And those are the kind of things we do. I think tagging and text-based querying are very important. Probably the most likely way people will use them. But the algorithm behind it will have to analyze the content.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah, please. Wait for the mic, please.
I'm BK Sen. We have not discussed to what extent these videos are being used in observing the distant sky. Suppose somebody wants to, a new satellite has been discovered outside our solar system. Yeah. Now he wants to take the photograph of that video because there is problem of glare, yeah, and problem of high fidelity.
Yes.
So how these things are being addressed?
Okay. Now, very good point. I mean, there is a whole research in the video field related to video enhancement, which is to really make sure that the content is revealed as opposed to the junk that are around it. I mean, it's not only true in astronomy, which is definitely true, but it's true in ordinary everyday video. But it's also true a lot in medical video. A lot of ultrasound or something like that. You can't really see it very well when it's moving, but you can enhance this to bring out the stuff. So enhancement of video automatically to bring out the real stuff and removing camera sort of artifacts, lighting artifacts. This is very important. I didn't talk about it because of the context of the talk here, but there is an active research community. To a certain extent, one can say that that's probably more advanced and interesting things have been done. Super resolution, for example, video resolution is not very good. Can we actually see video at high resolution is a very active research area, and quite a lot of good work has been done. Even in fact, one of the professors in IIT Bombay, Professor Subhashish Chowdhury, is a world leader in that area. And so that's an area. So enhancement and improving video quality is an active research area. I just didn't touch upon it because of the theme that I wanted to have for this talk.
Okay, one more, the last question. Yeah, please. That's the last one. I'm sorry, we're running out of time.
How the object or say text portion can be extracted from the
text
video.
portion.
Object or text.
Like in the context, like text in a, I'm thinking about like a license plate of a car or something like that.
Video, from the video, how the object or the text can be extracted from these portions.
I'm not sure I fully understood the question, but let me address it in the way I understood it. See, video contains humans and other objects as well as textual material. Characteristic example is license plate numbers in cars or something like that. Can we extract the textual content, road signs, whatever? That's actually reasonably okay because there's quite a lot of work that's done, and we have an advantage there, which is at least if you know something about the set of languages, we can look for characteristics and so forth. And plus, text has a very different appearance from other objects because it's much more regular. So there is quite a lot of work being done on extracting text from video and separating them from objects. However, extracting specific objects like a person versus a dog versus a chair, that's a more complicated problem. We call it segmentation of video into objects. There's a reasonable amount of work, but I would say that's still some way to go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for giving me the chance.